Product provided by Nintendo. Now I know exactly what you're thinking right now. How can we possibly compare these two games that belong to two completely different genres and say that one is better than the other? Well, girls and guys, that's not exactly what we're going to do today. What we plan to do by pitting Super Smash Bros. Ultimate against The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is determine which one of these games is the best one on the Nintendo Switch. And we're going to do this by analyzing what each game did for their respective franchise, and really how innovative they are for their genre. You see, both games are fan-freaking-tastic. We gave both of them great scores, and they're labeled as must-plays on Metacritic. But if for some reason you only had to pick one of these games, that is where this episode of Game vs. Game comes into play. Last year we pitted Zelda Breath of the Wild against Super Mario Odyssey, and that battle was won by Zelda. And if we're asking what the best game on the Switch was this year, it is undoubtedly Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Now, it's time for Breath of the Wild to enter the ring once again to defend its title of Best Nintendo Switch Game. So we're going to determine the winner of this fight with the following categories: content, gameplay, creative risk, and impact. Now sit back and relax, because the battle between Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is about to break out. What both games have in common is that they are chock full of content, albeit in different ways. Of course, content is one of the key buying factors in any Super Smash Bros. Game, and Ultimate has a ton to offer. For one, the base fighter roster is the biggest we've ever seen in the series, clocking in at a whopping 74, and the numbers just keep going up from there. There are 103 stages, over 850 music tracks, and over 1,000 spirits to collect while playing. These spirits are used to affect how a fighter plays in matches, spirit battles, and the World of Light adventure mode. This is not just a simple adventure mode that can be completed in 8 hours. Here you traverse large maps and engage in spirit battles to progress throughout the main story. And you can unlock characters along the way to support your fight against the evil Galeem. On one hand, this mode is super grindy, even with the insane variety of battles you'll come across. But playing through this mode will reward you with more spirits as well as music tracks. If World of Light isn't your jam, then the classic mode is back once again with a cool spin. Each of the 74 characters offer unique sequences of battles, ending with a final boss like Master and Crazy Hand, Rathalos from Monster Hunter, and Dracula from Castlevania. Even though most battles end with Master and Crazy Hand, it's neat to see some variety. If you really want a challenge though, then you're gonna have to play all 74 Classic Mode campaigns. Then there are the multi-man smashes, where you can take on a horde of enemies, one of which is All-Star Smash, pitting you up against every single fighter. Does it suck that All-Star Mode isn't back? Kind of, but with a story mode as large as World of Light, it's kind of understandable. With all these modes in mind though, the most you will get from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate are the battles against friends. The content in this game is already superb, with the milestones and challenge board, but the smashed battles with friends or CPUs will definitely keep you coming back for more. As for Breath of the Wild, this game is also jam-packed with content. Rather than it being placed in the menus, however, it is spread throughout the entire world of Hyrule. The most abundant of these being the shrines that offer trials in the form of puzzles, combat, and even quests out in the main world. Like any open world game, Breath of the Wild is full of side quests that accompany the main one. While some of them do stand out, others are very minuscule and don't offer much in terms of rewards. Tackling the main quest involves visiting 4 settlements and freeing their giant divine beasts from Malice Corruption. We'll go into further detail about how good these dungeons are in a later section, but right off the bat, you'll notice that the amount of dungeons in this game are pretty low compared to most other Zelda games. That could be understandable when you consider just how much detail is in the game's world. Even though there is over 100 hours worth of content in the base game alone, Breath of the Wild doesn't give you much of a reason to return to the game over time, unless you really like collecting 900 Korok seeds. Once you beat the main quest, there isn't that much to do from there. What's even stranger is that when you do acquire the Master Cycle 0, this is after you complete the Divine Beasts, so there really isn't much to do with it afterward except create a kick-ass music video. Both Smash Ultimate and Breath of the Wild have solid replayability, but there is no denying that Smash has an insane amount of content, thus giving players all the more reason to come back to it over time. And that is why Ultimate wins this battle for content. Though content may be a big reason for Super Smash Bros. Popularity, the gameplay is another thing that keeps us coming back for more. Some Smash games haven't had the best gameplay, but Ultimate is the peak of perfection. Elements from both Smash 4 and Melee make their way into Ultimate, providing a balanced experience between the casual and hardcore players. With 74 fighters, at least 1, 2, or 10 of them are bound to suit your playstyle. Some of the additions to the gameplay include a stage morph feature, which is exactly what it sounds like, a final smash meter you can use instead of a smash ball, and of course, the spirits. Arguably the biggest addition made to the gameplay. Like we stated in the last section, these spirits, when equipped, will affect the fighters, like automatically equipping a weapon at the start of a battle, reducing their landing lag, or simply making them heavier. You can allow spirits to be equipped in regular battles, but more often than not, you'll be using them in the World of Light. Truth be told, Ultimate doesn't really do much to change the Smash Bros. Formula, but that's okay. You really can't do anything drastic with the gameplay of Smash unless you want an angry mob with pitchforks at your doorstep. However, people might have thought that about Zelda until they saw Breath of the Wild. An open-world 3D Zelda game is something fans have been wanting for a long time. Sure, Wind Waker was open world, but also too much water. Breath of the Wild was the game to really push the open world roots of the franchise established by the very first game on the NES. Now, could the developers have just created a traditional Zelda game, but in an open world setting? Sure, but that just wasn't enough. There is a lot that Breath of the Wild changed about the Zelda formula, such as adding a jump button, being able to equip all kinds of weapons and armor, you can surf on your shield, cook, climb, glide, did I mention jump? All of these features were added in favor of the exploration that this game offers, and Breath of the Wild is all about exploration. We mentioned climbing and gliding a lot, but for good reason. It's the two things you're going to be doing the most of in this game, thus affecting how you view and explore the world. Combat is another key feature in Zelda, and no longer are you restricted to 1 or 2 swords throughout the entire game. This does come at a cost though, as weapons have durability and they will break when they've reached their limit. This was a deliberate feature implemented to make the player use every weapon at their disposal, but sometimes it gets rather annoying. Puzzles are another key component in Zelda, and Breath of the Wild makes them more interesting thanks to Sheikah runes. These allow you to alter the environment and solve the puzzles that shrines and divine beasts put in front of you. Not to say they're only used for puzzles, because they can also be a valuable tool during combat. And what matters the most about everything explained in this section is that it all feels great to control, especially after playing Red Dead Redemption 2. Link feels very responsive during his adventures, and so do his Sheikah rune powers. Traversing Hyrule has never felt better, which isn't that much of a surprise when you consider this is a Nintendo product and controls are one of their biggest focuses. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has the polished gameplay that you would expect from the series, but Breath of the Wild takes it up a notch with a whole lot of new features that work. And we're going to go over these way more in the next 2 sections. So with that, Breath of the Wild wins the battle for gameplay. If you ever want to create something truly great, you have to take risks. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate definitely took a few risks in this regard. The big one was including every single character from Smash history and then some. By doing this, director Masahiro Sakurai has already beaten the record for most fighters in a Smash game, thus reducing the amount of newcomers in this installment. However, that issue is easily going to be fixed with the Fighters Pass already including the Piranha Plant bonus character as well as Joker from Persona 5. That said, out of the 103 stages included, only 4 of them are new. Fortunately, more will be added with the Fighters Pass, but it certainly makes Ultimate feel less like a new Smash game and more of a Smash Bros. Greatest Hits album. Not like that's a bad thing though. After the Subspace Emissary and Brawl, fans have been wanting a new adventure mode like this one. Make no mistake, the World of Light adventure mode in Ultimate was a risky endeavor that was more about the gameplay than the cutscenes we loved from Brawl. And you know what? This one didn't pay off quite as well. World of Light is extremely long and repetitive, despite how different the battles appear. It's not a terrible mode by any means, and I know some people enjoy it a lot, but is it better than the Subspace Emissary? Not by a long shot. Not to say Breath of the Wild doesn't have a few missteps either. The Divine Beast dungeons will never be replacements for traditional Zelda dungeons, and the story is by far one of the weakest in any Zelda game. That said, it succeeds in just about every other aspect. Coming fresh off of Skyward Sword, a Zelda game that played it too safe with the exception of motion controls, producer Eiji Aonuma and director Hidemaru Fujibayashi had to think of new ways to evolve the franchise into something new and yet familiar. What they came up with is nothing short of incredible. Breath of the Wild is the poster boy for creative risk. With it, the development team abandoned so many of the conventions that made a Zelda game and created a more modern take with a dynamic open world, a robust physics and chemistry engine, and a protagonist with more abilities than he has ever had. The two abilities of climbing and gliding practically eliminate all barriers of the open world, and you can tackle any situation as you see fit. But we cannot emphasize the importance of the physics and chemistry engine enough. Everything runs like clockwork. Rivers have a constant flow, most trees can be chopped down to make bridges, and you can set everything on fire. You can also hunt wildlife to gather ingredients for crafting and cooking. Hearts are completely scrapped in Breath of the Wild and are instead replaced by food, which is fine seeing as enemies can knock out a ton of health in one hit. Speaking of enemies, when you kill them, they'll eventually come back thanks to the Blood Moon. So yeah, the game won't get much easier the more enemies you defeat. Because of this detailed engine and emphasis on unique playstyles, Breath of the Wild takes the creative risk battle easily. Masahiro Sakurai and Eiji Aonuma are both well-respected masters of their craft. They each have impacted the industry at several points in their careers and are nothing short of geniuses. However, when it comes to their latest works, one of them is more impactful than the other. You see, as great as Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is, it does very little to innovate in its respective genre. Sure, it might just be the best game in its series, but at the same time, it doesn't add a whole lot new to the table in terms of its gameplay and even content. Even though there is a ton of content, a lot of it is from previous games in the Smash series with very few additions. Of course, this was purposeful. Sakurai was aiming to create a Smash game that celebrates the franchise's 20 years of existence, and it does that job very well. Breath of the Wild, on the other hand, takes things to a completely different level. Not only does it redefine The Legend of Zelda, but open world gaming as a whole. Right now, we're seeing the effects of this game take place with the latest Assassin's Creed games Origins and Odyssey, where you can climb just about any surface like in Breath of the Wild. Okay, maybe that's just a coincidence, but you know developers of open world games have kept a close watch on Breath of the Wild and are taking notes for their next projects. As we stated in the last section about creative risks, this game took a lot of them. And while some of them didn't pay off like the Divine Beasts and story, everything else did, like the physics and chemistry engine, climbing, gliding, shrines, and jumping. While we do hope that the traditional Zelda formula returns in the form of maybe a 2D game on the Switch, we can only hope that the next game learns from the mistakes of Breath of the Wild and capitalizes on everything it did right. And now it is settled. With Super Smash Bros. Ultimate winning the battle for content and Breath of the Wild winning gameplay, creative risk, and impact, the winner has been decided. We declare The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild the champion of this game versus game, as well as the best title currently on the Nintendo Switch. Make no mistake though, if you own a Switch, you should definitely own both of these games. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is still the best Switch game of 2018, and will continue to have that title until the Earth is swallowed up by the sun. And Breath of the Wild is just an essential game to own in general. Maybe within the next few years, Breath of the Wild will lose the title for best Nintendo Switch game, but for now, it can soak in the spotlight until the best Switch game of 2019 comes in to claim that title. But we want to hear from you. Do you think Breath of the Wild is a better Switch game than Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? Let us know in the comments section below, or tweet them to us at Common Realm. Be sure to click that thumbs up button if you liked this video, and if you are new, subscribe and hit that notification bell to know when we upload another episode of Game vs. Game, as well as other videos on the Nintendo Switch. We'd also like to thank our wonderful patrons, including royal producer Kenyatta Ali, for all their contributions to the realm. Visit patreon.com/commonrealm to find out how you can join the ranks in exchange for some awesome perks. So until then, girls and guys, this has been the Commonwealth Realm, and we will see you in the next one.